Party Center Speaks podcast. This is the podcast for family entertainment center and event venue owners, operators, managers, and staffers looking to grow their business. Want to learn more about how you can increase party bookings, improve facility operations, and other topics? This is the podcast for you. My name is Laura Cañas, and I'm the marketing manager here at Party Center Software. In this episode, we're going to share audio from our webinar on the future of family entertainment. We hope that you enjoy this presentation.
Welcome everybody. I know you're trickling into the Zoom meeting right now. And as usual, you can see our icebreaker question up on the screen, which is, what changes have you made in the last few years to improve your business? And of course, in the last 2 years, we've had so many different changes, so many different obstacles in our industry, but we've overcome those obstacles. We continue to pivot, and it's all uphill from here for sure. We did a mid-year industry insights survey last month, and we had this question up on the survey that was sponsored by Funnovation, Creative Works, Delta Strikes, and of course we here at PCS put it together. And the top answer was actually tied between two answers to this question were hired new staff and changed pricing. So that seems to be the pattern right now. Everybody's doing either of those or both of those at the same time. Second to that was some started focusing on marketing some more. So that's always very important. There's so many different changes that are happening in the marketing world, right? And we can always pivot there. And the third to that series of answers was adding new attractions. So a lot of folks decided to change the theme of their facility, change the branding, of course, that folds into marketing, right? And upgrade their attractions, add something new, something exciting to get people back through their doors. So what changes have you made in the last few years to your business? Let's check out the chat here. Be sure to put it in the chat. Megan says, I hope online booking is what has been added. That's true. We're the online booking peeps, so we love that. Hopefully you added that if you didn't have it already. Team, are there any trends that you've been seeing? Anything other than adding new attractions or focusing on marketing that customers have been doing to just
Yeah, I would say that a lot of people have been going on Instagram Reels and TikTok because nowadays people want to make videos and they want to see those cool and quick videos with the cool edits. So that's something that I've been seeing.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely getting on TikTok and showing behind the scenes stuff too has been super popular. So that is definitely a winner there on the marketing front. Staff training, coaching, absolutely. Check out our people at Trainertainment. Yeah, for sure. We're actually going to be working on a resource pretty soon about hiring, onboarding, best practices and whatnot. That's definitely big. Anything else, team? Any other trends? All right, I don't see anything in the chat, but if you have your answer to this question, be sure to put it in the chat or in that Q&A section if you have any questions for us as we go. But yeah, let's get started here. So today we're going to be talking about the future of family entertainment, how to navigate the current market, maximize opportunity, and win with none other than Jerry Marola from AEM and Foundations Entertainment University. But first, before we get into introductions, I really wanted to thank you all for joining us today. I know that there's a ton of different places that you could be, but we're just so excited that you were able to allot this hour with us and get some knowledge that's going to grow your business. So if this is your first time on one of our webinars, we're Party Center Software, and we're powered by Party Center Pay. We're all about helping you stop chasing and start booking more parties. So we help you to automate your party booking business and grow. We offer a point of sale, online waivers, party booking, of course, advanced reporting, gift cards, and so much more. So we're really excited. If you'd like to demo with us, please do so and contact Megan. We, of course, our expertise is the family entertainment industry. So we work with arcades, trampoline parks, and other like facilities. We work with a ton of different businesses as well, but our sweet spot is the family entertainment industry. And of course, I always say this every webinar, but it's really, really true that we're more than just a software, we're business builders. So we really pride ourselves on creating resources. As you can see on our new website, we have the resources tab. So we have ebooks, webinars like the one you're on today, a blog where we post 3 times a week, and you have a lot of great content here. So be sure to head over to our website and check it out. And we have the PCS Academy as well. So if you're not signed up for the PCS Academy yet, we really recommend that you sign up. It's totally free. You make a free account and you're able to access all of the content that I mentioned free of charge, and you don't have to fill out 100 forms. You just are able to download anything you want, listen to anything you want. And we have great guests on every month, of course, on our webinar, like Jerry. So you have just a whole playlist to listen through. And if you are a customer, you also have access to the Training Academy. So if you are onboarding a new staff member and you need to help them understand Party Center software and our different features and how to use it, you can run through a bunch of videos on virtually every single feature in our software and help that person get up to speed, and also as a refresher for yourself if you need it. So you have those 2 portals. It's totally free. If you go to the QR code up on the screen here or the link below, you can sign up today, and it's definitely worth it. We continue to add new content to it, and we also have big plans for making it even better this year. So very exciting stuff. And without further ado, on our panel today, we have Megan and Courtney. They are our success consultants. They are experts in business consulting, facility planning, software advice. So they're here to help you with any sort of questions that you have. We also have the fabulous success team, success managers, Eileen and Danielle. They both ran facilities in the past, so their expertise is incredible. They can help you figure out how to optimize PCS software for your business, marketing advice, of course, business consulting, and they regularly check in with all of our customers. Last but not least, we have our fearless leader, Rebecca. She's the Director of Sales, Marketing, and Customer Success. And if we haven't met yet, I'm Laura, I'm the Marketing Manager. And of course, we have Araceli, she's amazing. She is responsible for all of the amazing social media posts that we have going, all of our reels. So we're here to help you just grow your business, grow your knowledge, and do all that good stuff. And our guest today, Jerry. Jerry, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so happy to learn from you. And I'll give you a second now to just say hi and introduce yourself and your business and what you're an expert in.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Laura. This is really exciting and fun today. One of my favorite topics, by the way, for sure, looking into the crystal ball. For those of you that may not know me, my name is Jerry Marola. My firm, Amusement Entertainment Management, is focused in the entertainment sector, as we have been for the last 27 years. We work with our clients in developing entertainment properties and also developing those brands into multi-store formats. We work in the theme park, amusement park, family entertainment center, water park, and casino segments. You know, I'll share with you the first 10 years of my life, I was a commercial banker focused in the development of entertainment properties. So I think it's probably fair to say I've spent most of my working career now in the entertainment sector overall.
Awesome. So let's get into it, Jerry. Let's talk about some of those key elements of the future. What is going on? What are the trends and where are we going?
Well, you know, this is an interesting topic, Laura, because, you know, so many things have changed in the last 2 years versus the decade before it. You know, what's interesting about this industry, you know, I've been tracking trends for the last 27 years that I've been in it. And I can tell you that so many things have changed in our recent past versus the history of the industry that in many ways we're rewriting the chapter on what's going to happen going forward. And I put together a little outline here, which is just a little bit of a top level overview to talk about. And then we'll get into some of these topics as we move forward. But there are some big things for us to think about, those of us that are currently operating entertainment venues, planning to develop a new entertainment venue, or really expanding our brand to include multiple stores. And these are the big hotspots, the big metrics now that we have to be careful of, because with each one of these pieces, frankly, we've got to get it right coming out of the gate. The big one, of course, is fine-tuning our location and our market position. It's no longer okay to say, you know what, we're going to buy a piece of real estate and build a building or lease an existing commercial bay and throw a bunch of entertainment in it and be successful. Today, we've really got to be much more fine-tuned. The consumer has such higher expectations from their entertainment and leisure experiences that we've got to be sensitive to where we're placing our businesses and ultimately where we sit in the marketplace. How do we sit in the pecking order of options in the leisure sector for consumers to do? The greater clarity that we can deliver, the more likely we're going to see the consumer at our doorstep. The other big issue, and of course, we're all talking about it these days, is inflation, right? And when we look at inflation, it's not an unusual condition. You know, if you go back in time and you study the US economy since the Great Depression, you'll actually see the ebb and flow of periods of deflation and inflation. Knowing the history of inflation helps us understand what to do with it. One of the big issues we've got to be sensitive to right now is controlling the size of our projects and also controlling the development costs. You know, now many people will sit and say, gee, you know, how do you control development costs? You know, it's actually an amazing thing, because when you're in a period of high inflation, we have to be very sensitive to our choices and our selections. We know it's going to cost us more to develop entertainment properties, but if we're careful, what we'll find is that we find a more efficient and effective way to deliver entertainment to a market, even if it means the size of our project is actually smaller than it might typically be. The other big issue that we're facing here is automation and the need for automation. We're seeing it all around us. The healthcare industry, which is arguably the largest industry in North America, has been the first to respond to the concept of automation. And as consumers, we're all going to start seeing that in our daily life with our interaction with healthcare. Entertainment's going to follow suit. And what this means for us is we really have to find ways to automate all of the processes, or certainly as many of them as possible, in our facilities, but keeping the most important one personal, and that's the guest service experience, right? So the things that we can automate, we should. The things that need a personal touch, well, we want to make sure we're still delivering it. That means we're going to focus our labor in the areas that it matters most, and we're going to automate the areas that we can certainly do so without impacting that guest experience. The other big thing that we've got to face right now is redefining the value proposition. What the consumer is looking for in the experience, what's important to them. You know, many times we try to compete and we say to ourselves, well, you know, price is the most sensitive issue. You know, what's changed in our society and what we're learning is price isn't particularly the most critical. Many times availability has become the most critical. Think about your own personal lives right now. I'm sure many of you in your quest for product over the last year and a half have said to yourself, I need it, I want it, I'm going to pay for it. Price was a less sensitive part of the decision. When it comes to entertainment, what we're finding with consumers is that personal satisfaction ranks highest in their mind. And that means that the consumer is willing to pay more for a better experience. It's critically important for them. So while price is no longer the driver, quality most certainly is. We have to figure out that value proposition in our entertainment facilities to make sure the consumer is clear on what it is that we deliver. Quality is at the top of the list, price not as sensitive in the current day. The other big issue is developing that positive internal culture. Those of you that are operating venues know what a challenge it's been in the last year and a half to keep your employees, to hire new employees, to really get productivity out of our team members. A positive culture goes a long way into solving some of these critical issues. And you'll find that the big success stories in our industry are facilities that have an internal culture where all of those team members are working together. They feel the desire to succeed together. They're giving it 110% because they personally want to do that. They're no longer looking at it as a job. They're looking at it a little bit more as a career and really a reflection of themselves. So one of the things that we're encouraging our client base to do is really start focusing on that positive internal culture going forward, because it's going to be critical in keeping your team members and building that long-term employment base. The other big issue that we're facing is, in the entertainment sector, probably today, like no other time period in society, we have to plan for evolution. The change in our offerings, the change in our attractions. If we're building new facilities today, that's got to get into our thought and planning process right from day one, because the entertainment sector is changing very quickly now. Technology is one of the reasons why that's happening. If I spin the clock back 25 years ago, we didn't have access to the levels of technology that we have today. And as a result, our attraction styles changed in a much slower format. Today, we have the capability of delivering new attractions in a much shorter time window with newer styles and newer offerings, to the point where we've got to ask ourselves, if we're operating a business today as an FEC, what should this FEC look like in 3 or 5 years? And are we prepared to make those evolutionary changes to keep us vibrant? Because the one thing we have all learned is we can't sit on the side of the road. If we sit on the side of the road, everyone else is going to pass us by. Laura, I'm going to ask you to advance the slide, please.
Absolutely. We had United Play on for a webinar this year, and they said the same exact thing, as well as how mixed use of facilities are rising. So you have something for the adults, for the kids, for the teens, and that's been like one trend that has been, of course, blowing up in recent times.
It's very true. It's making better use of the assets that you're employing. And this means that we're covering a variety of age groups today, unlike what we did years ago. You spin the clock back 10 or 15 years ago, we were very focused in an age segment. Today, we're realizing that we're a family venue, we're an adult venue, we're a corporate venue, and we're really servicing all of those groups based on time of day and day of week. The big issue we have to prepare ourselves for is a paradigm shift in real estate. And I think we're probably, those of you that are joining us today, I think you're probably seeing this happen all around you right now, but there are some real game changers that are happening in really throughout the world, but most notably in North America right now. Some of us are witnessing a record number of retail store closings. The retail stores are saying to themselves, hey, we don't actually need a brick and mortar location to connect with the consumer, to sell our goods, and all of those things. So we have to be careful about this shift, because unfortunately what happens is the consumer relies less on retail locations. This means that as entertainment providers, we've got to ask ourselves about our real estate selections and make sure that we stay in harm's way of the consumer. The consumer has to be able to find us, think about us, see us. The greater likelihood that they connect with us every day, whether they're driving by or they see our sign, becomes critically important in staying relevant in their minds. Those of you that are searching for real estate, think about a couple of things that are happening here. More than 80% of the traditional mall sites in the United States are in technical bankruptcy right now. In all likelihood, in the next 3 or 4 years, those mall sites are going to have to move into some sort of redevelopment option. And with that in mind, this is going to open up some really prime real estate for entertainment and leisure use. Those of you that may be in what I classify as a B market versus a metropolitan A market, this is particularly interesting because suddenly this prime real estate becomes a prime target for entertainment development. And that's something I think you're going to want to be on the front end of, because that situation is going to change very quickly. And when it does, I think you want to be at the front of the line, particularly if you're growing your brand in a marketplace. As we all know, the consumer dependency on brick and mortar is going to continue to decline. What is winning right now and what we have to be sensitive to, the consumer is still all about leisure, leaving their home for restaurant and dining and for entertainment. Those are the two big reasons to get in the car and go somewhere. We are finally in the perfect situation to succeed, because the consumer shift is such that the things that are most important to the consumer are ultimately what we provide. This next slide is an interesting one because you can see a couple of photos on here of things that are happening in real life right now with respect to technology, and we're all experiencing it in our day-to-day lives. Think about what this is going to do for us on the entertainment model side. We all know that our model is incredibly labor intensive, and it has been for decades. We have to change our thinking about this. The consumer today is very, very willing to handle part of the experience on their own. As a matter of fact, in a lot of venues, the consumer prefers to check themselves out. They prefer to schedule themselves in an automated way. You know, those of you that might shop at, the big box hardware stores, Home Depot or Lowe's, the large volume of consumers prefer the automated checkout. They do this largely because they feel that they can be more efficient than the actual employees can at completing the process. The good news about this type of technology format is that we can now dedicate the staff that we have available to ourselves for the true guest service purposes. And because of looking at our labor rates throughout the United States, we're seeing so many markets now where the effective minimum wage is $15 an hour. And in some markets, quite frankly, to obtain employees, it's $20 or $25 an hour. Paying those types of wages can be very difficult to do in this style of business. And because of that, one of the key investments that most entertainment centers will be making over the next 3 to 5 years is an investment in automation. Folks, it's working. The consumer is receptive to it. They are very accepting of it. It's our job now to deliver that automation in a format to allow the consumer to guide their own experience. This is a very, very powerful way of improving the bottom line on current and future FECs in the segment. Going a little bit farther, and yes, we're here and we're talking about it, is frankly the use of artificial intelligence and robotics. The healthcare industry in 2022, 2023, and 2024 are making the largest investments in history in artificial intelligence and robotics. And the idea here is to really control much of the consumer's needs in an automated way without the presence of a human being. Now, listen, we all love the personal attention, right? I, for one, like to communicate with another human about my needs. But what I've learned over time is that there are many services and elements that I can do in an automated way and focus my real needs on human interaction when it becomes appropriate or when it's needed. Now, here's the double-edged sword, Laura, on this situation. To move into a robotic or automated way in operating entertainment facilities, we've got to make a front-end investment in the technology itself. So that means that instead of employing humans, we might be making investments in robotic elements. Some facilities are now switching to robotic food delivery. So we're using robots to actually handle the delivery process from kitchen to table. Well, you know what? The consumers actually think this is pretty darn novel. They think it's a neat and exciting thing to observe. A typical robot delivery system on an individual element is about an $80,000 product. The food service industry is responding very effectively in this regard because, like our industry, the food service industry, restaurants in particular, are finding themselves labor heavy as well. And they're trying to solve that issue. This is one of the steps that they're using to get themselves there. So this is not so far out when you come to think of it, folks. This is a reality on making an investment in how we control one of our biggest variable expenses in the business, that being the labor component. The greater chance we have of automating our facilities, whether we're building a new facility today with heavy levels of automation, whether we're retrofitting facilities for automation, this is going to be a critical step in improving our bottom line and lessening our dependency on this labor-heavy model that, frankly, we've lived with for decades. Going a little bit farther, I touched on the issue of food service. What we are seeing now is, in addition to the food service process, we're now using robots to guide consumers throughout an experience, to guide them in such ways as getting them to event rooms, getting them to special formats or things where we might typically use a host or hostess to solve that circumstance. Now we're actually providing directions. We're giving the consumer the ability to follow our automation process to get them where they need to go. I find this to be a very big change in consumer thought process, because what was once a little bit of an off-putting idea of, hey, where's the staff? Now the consumer suddenly has responded with the idea of saying, you know what, we're okay with automation. We're okay with high levels of technology that we can control. And I think that's the big issue here. The consumer wants to make sure that they're in control, whether that's with an app, whether that's with an online booking. If the consumer feels they can confirm what they are doing, and if the consumer feels that they can rely on the technology, I think you're going to find a very favorable response in that regard. Another big issue that's affecting us, and I'm sure we're all experiencing it right now, is that the consumer lifestyle has shifted. Social is such a critical part of what we do every day. As a matter of fact, in most cases, it's the trigger that causes consumers today to want to do something. It has to have a social element within it. And that means if you look at our family entertainment center facilities, let's ask ourselves, how do we improve the level of social within that venue? Are we incorporating areas in the venue where people can simply relax, talk, enjoy themselves? What are we doing to create experiences where people can do them together? Because as we've all discovered, making memories is a lot about making memories with other people. And the social aspect is driving our industry right now. If you take a look at the most successful segments within the entertainment, you will find them to be driven by the social card. It's dining, it's social drinking, and get-togethers, all surrounded by activities. In the family entertainment sector, we win and can win if we incorporate that activity into the social setting. Whereas traditional dining and restaurant facilities rely strictly on a food experience, which is a great experience nonetheless, we're going to up the ante on that in entertainment by adding other elements that are male and female friendly, but most importantly, social. Social is the reason why people get off the couch and into the car. And we've become very sensitive to this in designing new facilities today, and facilities that will open in the next 2, 3, or 4 years, because the consumer has tremendous expectations on what leisure means and what they feel a facility needs to look like and feel like. Where's the ambiance? How is that ambiance delivered to the consumer? It's not only about our attractions and our experiences, but the feel of the venue is going to set the stage for whether the consumer actually wants to visit with us for an extended period of time.
And this has become even more important now, this year, that people are able to leave the home. There's not as many lockdowns, shutdowns, like the pandemic really put that at the forefront of our mind, how much we just miss human connection, right? So now facilities really have to focus on this because people are hungry to have that aspect of their life fulfilled even more now than ever before.
So Laura, it's a really good point. And, of course, the next question is always, is that sustainable, and will the consumer stay in that mindset? I'm a firm believer that there has officially been a lifestyle shift in what consumer expectations are today and how the consumer reacts. Many consumers, and we've all been subject to this, some are very comfortable working at home to the point where they don't want to return to the office. Many employers are looking at that model and saying to themselves, our employees actually don't want to come back to the office. They're producing, they're productive. Our need for office space is declining. This social trend of, hey, it's a lifestyle shift is here to stay, I believe. While I don't have a crystal ball, I feel in many ways that it has changed pretty dramatically.
I think so too. And a core reason why it has changed is because people want that control, not only of their experience, but of their life, of their lifestyle, as you mentioned, and that autonomy over their time. And they want that time to spend with family and not necessarily like wasted on a commute, right? So this has been incredibly important. And it makes me think of social media too, and just the amount that we consume. We're in the information age. We're constantly on our phones. We're constantly distracted by the TV, by the phone. And I think that's why these activities that you have available in your facility are even more important now than ever before, is because if a family gets together and wants to spend quality time, they want to partake in a quality activity, not necessarily just watching something on the TV together, or everybody goes to dinner, but all the teens are on their phones, right? They want to do something. So it just makes me think of that as well.
We've got to, Laura, as we move through this process, really think about, how do you connect with your guests going forward? What do they want? And what they really want is that connectivity, that social basis, the ambiance that we have to deliver. We're spending more and more dollars on facility finishes than we ever have in history. We're designing the nicest bathrooms, we're designing the nicest lounges in family entertainment centers, because the consumer has to feel comfortable. Ask yourself why you might visit a Starbucks. Is it just about the coffee, or is it about the seating, the ability to lounge for a bit, the ability to spend some time talking to somebody? It's part of the experience now. As family entertainment center owners and operators, we also have to think about this going forward, saying to ourselves, how do we capture some of that success? Look at the brands in society that are winning. Every one of them is focused on a lifestyle trend, focused on being connected to the consumer in some way, to the point where the consumer says, hey, this is me. This feels good for me. So as we kind of branch ourselves out, as we wrestle with the challenges of the current day, whether it's, the cost and expense associated with operating the facility, or whether it's the future expenses associated with dealing with labor and labor's costs, we can't forget the fact of why we are in business. We're in business to satisfy. And to satisfy, we got to deliver the right product to the consumer. And I think we can do that. I think we are incredibly well positioned as an industry to succeed. If you take a look at some of the performance numbers of some of the more notable brands in the family entertainment and adult sectors, you will find truly record performance in 2021 and 2022. Now, some of that is certainly attributed to a consumer that just can't wait to escape and get out. But the reality is the trend is continuing, and that continued trend is important for us. We're seeing changes in our economy. Look at the price of fuel, right? We know what happens when the price of fuel rises. The consumer tends to stay a little closer to home. Their vacation styles tend to change a bit. Well, frankly, that's always been a big win for our society. For 25 years, I've been calling this industry recession resistant, and I truly mean it, because when we move into recessionary times, our businesses tend to flourish because the consumer uses us as that outlet. We're a close to home solution. We're a solution that takes the stress of the day and eliminates it. It's certainly for 2 or 3 hours during that visit. And that's what we truly deliver to the consumer. The other thing we've got to think about is this changing landscape. Who is the consumer? And who are we ultimately opening our doors to? Take a look at some of the statistics. 78% of millennials say they choose to spend on desirable experiences versus products. What does that mean for an economy that we're in? Well, the consumer is going to stop spending on houses, cars, furniture, and durable goods, but they're going to focus their attention on personal satisfaction elements and experiences. That's us. That's what we deliver. we have to be prepared to take advantage of what will ultimately be a consumer run-up of personal satisfaction spending. Sharing of experiences via social media is now a life standard, right? It's what we do. Let's ask ourselves, how can that work in our favor in raising awareness about our facility? You know, one of the easiest ways for a family entertainment center or an entertainment center overall to grow its revenues is through awareness. The more consumers that are aware of what you offer, the greater chance you have of improving your top line. Social media has become our ticket to get there, but what are we sharing? We've got to share the things that the consumer today wants to see and feel. A third of consumers buy from brands based on social and environmental impact. Something we can't ignore. We've got to be part of the community. Community is what we are all about. We share with the community. We do things for the community. Most importantly, we've got to be that outlet for families and adults and kids to be able to recreate together, to make memories, to really add to family values. That's what we are truly all about. Wellness and holistic health is becoming a top consumer priority. Those of you that are operating entertainment facilities with multiple attractions, consider what those attractions are and what they can be. Ask yourself whether there's attractions that we can add that might be active attractions where the consumer is physically involved in the experience, and match those against some of your more passive attractions to see if we can get and create a situation whereby the consumer says, you know what, this is good for me, this is good for my kids. You know, we're out of the house, we're doing something worthwhile, and we're having fun at the same time. And then, of course, user-generated content is driving the narrative for future leisure experiences. The FECs of the future have to consider how the user becomes part of the experience and how they literally write the book of what happens within the facility. Automation is helping us with this. Technology is helping us and allowing the user to write their own story within our facility. And we've got to figure out how we open the door to that and allow that to occur, because ultimately, this is what our users are reacting to. They're reacting to the fact that it has to be their narrative. How can they use our facility for their story? Long-term thought process on that one.
Awesome.
And naturally, we're certainly open to questions or thoughts that anybody might have regarding where we're headed.
Absolutely. Well, Jerry, thank you so much. I learned so much while you were going over all of the points. I would like for everybody who has a question to just put it in that Q&A feature or in the chat. So if you have a question, be sure to pop it in there and we'll answer it. I do have a question for you, Jerry. Do you have any specific advice that you would give to new facility owners versus veterans that have just been doing it for 20 plus years, let's say?
Well, you know, Laura, this is probably the most critical of the questions, because those that are a little newer to the industry have the toughest ride, so to speak, in that they're learning as they go. The first year in particular is probably the most difficult because you don't know what to expect. You learn a lot in those first 12 months. But if I had a piece of advice for newer owners, I would say everything matters right now. And that means that we have to be super, super diligent when it comes to efficiency. The big challenges we're having, of course, are on the labor side, and the cost of labor is significant. The number of individual employees that we have is notably significant in multi-attraction facilities. For newer owners, probably the biggest thing to focus on here is looking at that operating schedule every week and asking yourself, where can we be more efficient with our schedule? Where can we be more efficient with our labor? And let's also not be afraid to say to ourselves, we may not be open the same number of hours we were open when we first created the facility a year ago. You know, if we were operating at 85 or 88 hours a week, maybe we should be operating at 70 hours a week. Because the fact of the matter is the consumer likes to come at certain times of the day and certain days of the week. To be efficient, we've got to deliver the experience at the times when the consumer comes to us most. And that means some of our off-peak periods might need to be closure periods so that we're not burning the revenues that we attain during the peak periods.
That's a great point. Absolutely. We always tell facility owners that are going to sign up for online booking with us how much more revenue they will generate if they automate that part of the process. And you can't literally make revenue while you sleep
It's
because
true.
you give people that ability to just take ownership over that part of the booking process. And I'm sure Megan can add a bunch of information that she usually spreads during her demos, but it's just so valuable to embrace the not being able to be everywhere and accepting your limitations as an owner, and also focusing more of your time on strategic thinking rather than paper waivers and online, well, booking, but physically or over the phone and stuff like that. So and definitely regarding that experience, this is going to change so much more than we can probably even imagine. We can, like you said, look into that crystal ball and make some predictions, but it's going to ramp up as the years continue on. So,
Well, one
team,
thing to consider, Laura, is that, we don't have to operate these facilities the way we've operated them in the past. The world is a changing platform right now, and that means that we have to think and rethink all of the elements that we deal with on a daily basis in a family entertainment center, and say to ourselves, is there a better or more efficient way to offer this to the consumer so that it's profitable? I've always looked at the business from the bottom up, not from the top down. And what I mean by that is a business has to be profitable to be sustainable. To be sustainable, certain things have to exist. If you analyze the business from the bottom up, you design a set of protocols that allows that business to function effectively and profitably, because that's the only option that you're creating. So for newer business owners out there, I would say, don't be afraid to mix it up a little bit. Don't be afraid to dig in to your own financials and say to yourself, how do we do this differently? Perhaps not the normal way that it's been done in the last 10 or 20 years, but how do we do this to make this business more profitable in the current environment?
absolutely, and we're definitely seeing that too with thinking of my local bowling alleys, right? For years and years, it was just the one attraction. You go there to bowl. It's a lot of fun, but now you have huge arcade rooms within bowling alleys and better food, and it turns out to be like a much more holistic experience rather than you're just going there for bowling, right? Um, yeah, a lot has changed. And team, if you all have any questions for Jerry, please jump in. I'm not seeing anything else in the chat, but if you have a question, let's get your question.
Well, Laura, what's really happening there is when you use your bowling center example, is the operator of that facility is widening the net. They're creating more offerings and more ways for the consumer to spend money. And that's really what we're after today. The model and the science behind it is pretty simple. What we've learned about the consumer today is if the consumer is having a good time and they're comfortable in the venue, they'll continue to spend dollars with us. But we have to have that variety for them. We have to have the offerings available. So widening the net becomes very important. You're going to see some dramatic changes in a variety of industries within our segment going forward. The roller skating industry is reinventing itself to include entertainment-based attractions. The cinema industry is doing the exact same thing, widening the net, offering multiple attraction styles in addition to their screens to keep the consumer on the property longer. These are also the things that we have to think about as dedicated FEC owners, because we're going to be seeing newer levels of competition that frankly were not there previously. This particular model is the hotspot. I can tell you I work with a lot of national level commercial developers, mall operators, owners, and real estate investment trusts. And I can tell you their big focus going forward is on restaurants and entertainment venues to fill their large box space. Those are the two elements that still drive the consumer out of the home. And with that in mind, as existing operators, we want to prepare ourselves that, you know what, we might see a little more competition in our markets. But I just want to remind everybody that I travel the US almost every week, and I can tell you there are tremendous opportunities in North America in particular, in markets that are still completely untapped from an entertainment perspective. Yet all of those consumers, interestingly enough, drive remarkable distances to get to the available entertainment options that exist.
Well, Jerry, too, just like you say, and there's more of these locations opening up, but what really the people need to do is figure out what is unique about your facility and let everybody know that that's the unique experience that they're going to get, because not everybody's going to do things the way you do it. So that's your niche, is to find that uniqueness and promote it and make sure that your whole team knows exactly what that is, from the top down to the person that's cleaning the bathrooms.
Well, Eileen, you're exactly right, because the bottom line is, one of the other things that the consumer expects from us these days, now that we're living in sort of a different world, is that we've got to have that Disney quality. We've got to have that specialness to our experience. And we have to be a standout in our marketplace. Many people often ask me, well, how do I compete with some of the national brands that are in my marketplace? Well, the reality is exactly what Eileen just mentioned, which is, where's the specialness? Where's the uniqueness of our offering? What can we deliver that's different or more appealing to the consumer? It's not just about the attractions. It's about the delivery. It's about the ambiance and the experience within the facility that today's consumer is after.
Absolutely. It makes me think of right now I live in Knoxville, and I used to live in New York. And when I was a kid, we would travel crazy distances just to, do something as a family, get away a little bit from the city. And there's really not, you're in the city. So on one hand, you have some access, but on the other hand, you have to probably take the subway for an hour to get there, because you live outside of the main city, right? At least I did. And now in Knoxville, I'm just pleased at how many family entertainment centers I have that are probably 10, 20 minutes away. So even in metropolitan markets, there's still a lot of opportunity. And of course, rent is high. There's pros and cons to being in this location versus another one. But at the same time, there are a lot of opportunities really all over the country for our business to flourish and grow and whatnot. So
your point is well taken. One thing I'd like to share with those that are attending today is, while sometimes you feel discomfort over what's happening in the national economy today and all the things you hear on the media, the reality is this is actually one of the best times to be positioning yourself for a business in this sector. It's actually remarkable because we're coming off of some tremendous highs. A couple of things are changing. Number one, the stock market's seeing a lot of volatility. What that's done is it's put a lot of cash on the side of the road. A lot of investment capital is becoming available for mid-size and larger size projects out there in the entertainment sector. Two, the real estate world is about to change pretty remarkably, both from an office space, which is not as sensitive for us, to retail space. That availability is going to start changing pretty remarkably. And our ability as entertainment operators to source prime real estate is going to become crystal clear. The other big issue is, if you take a look back at our last recession, which started in late 2008, rolled through the end of 2010, those facilities that were developed towards the tail end of that recession had the largest run-up of performance in this industry's history. From 2011 forward, a remarkable run-up of performance. So, we always talk about what's the right timing. Well, frankly, the right timing is when the rest of the world is unsure what to do. And that's exactly where we're at right now. This is a good time from a planning stage perspective to start moving yourself through the process, because a lot of those pieces are going to start coming together very attractively. And with any luck, as we've seen with every other recession that's happened in the world, things start to adjust and find their norm once again. And normal is ultimately where our economy will end up. That's what we're banking on.
absolutely. And what I love about this conversation, Jerry, and the information that you shared with us today, is that there's so much opportunity right now. And if we look at history, you keep going back to look at the history, look at the trends, look at the patterns. This is a great time for all of us to grow personally and as well as in business. So although inflation is very painful to deal with, there is an opportunity to jump into certain investments that may have not been available to you during those normal times, certain opportunities that just may have not been available if things are kind of in this regular neutral sort of position, right? So on that note, thank you so much, Jerry, for joining us today.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you have any feedback or have any topics you'd like us to discuss, please be sure to email marketing@partycentersoftware.com. This podcast is a weekly podcast, so you can expect new episodes every Thursday. Party Center Speaks is powered by Party Center Software. We are a facility management tool that helps family entertainment centers and event venues book more parties and manage their facilities. We also offer marketing services such as custom website design and marketing automations to help you expand your reach and grow traffic. If you'd like to know more about us, head over to partycentersoftware.com and be sure to give us a follow at Party Center Software on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, TikTok, and at Party Center Soft on Twitter. Until next time, thanks for listening.